Welcome to Countercultural Life, coming to you from Study Studio, aka the Kickback on the Ottoman. I believe that's what we call these things, Ottoman. Like not
Ottoman?
Is it an empire?
Ottoman?
I'm not sure. That would be maybe if you had like 1,000 of these, it'd be an empire.
Maybe.
An Ottoman Empire. I don't
Yeah.
know. Anyway, the Kickback. We are going to talk a little bit about learning and education, how people grow. But once again, brought to you with my friend, Dr. Jeff Beard, and sponsored by Liquid Death. I don't think we can say that yet, but Noah is an aficionado.
He's working on that, right?
Yeah, he's working on that. He's working on he's going to get signed by Liquid Death to be their spokesperson. He just doesn't know that yet. So, anyway, we are going to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit. You may have seen the previous episode. If you haven't seen the previous episode talking about morality, just go scroll through the YouTube feeds and look for Jeff wearing the same shirt, University of Tennessee Go Vols, and me wearing the same Fear of God shirt. So that is the first episode of that. This is now the second part of it. We talked a lot about the mental aspect, the morality aspect, the mental aspect of the 4 areas, which we talk about the 4 areas to be a whole person, to walk in the fullness of your whole identity that you were designed and destined to be. You have to be healthy in these 4 areas: spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And we talked about the mental aspect last time. We are going to continue that conversation, but we're getting out of the choice aspect, and then we're going to get into the how people grow, because mental is mindset. It is how you grow. It is how you get better. You have to be determined, and you have to be focused in order to grow and walk this thing out. So, of course, I got my guy, Dr. Beard, back with me to talk through that. He is an expert in this area. He may not say he's an expert, but a lot of people consider him an expert. So when people consider you an expert, you kind of have to be an expert.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to go with that?
I'll go with that.
Okay. I mean, you have to be.
Yeah.
So let's get into it a little bit. So talking about growth, let's just kick it off like this.
Okay.
I am a believer, or used to be a believer, that...
No, wait a minute. You said believer, not a beaver.
Not
Beaver.
a believer.
Believer, whatever that is.
Believer.
Is that a Justin Bieber fan?
I used to be.
Now you're just a Swiftie. No, you're a Kansas City Chief. Well, that's the same thing, kind of, isn't it?
No.
Are they changing their name to the Kansas City Swifties? Is that true?
I don't know.
I heard that on social media. Is that true? Have you heard that?
I never thought I was gonna have to see that many highlights of Taylor Swift in a game. Anyway, that's a whole different concept. Whole different topic.
Okay.
Let's go. I used to say, and me and you used to argue about this.
Okay. Did we argue, or did we just have spirited
we argued.
dialogue? We did?
We argued because I tried to trump my non-PhD title.
We're talking about Trump now? I thought we were going to keep politics
No,
on.
focus.
Okay.
Focus. All right. IQ. See, we like to have fun. It's going to be good. We were a little serious last one, but it's game time now. We're getting into it. IQ. Remember we had this conversation about...
We did.
So what did I say? Do you remember what I said that you disagreed heartily with?
So you had been very conditioned over time. Through all of your education and background training and development in the military and all the materials. And for a long time, folks have stood by this idea that IQ is fixed.
Fixed IQ. Can't get any smarter.
Yeah.
You can get dumber, but you can't get any smarter.
I guess so. And so for me, in my studies in educational psychology, involved a lot of technology as well, but educational psychology, you go back to the roots of where the IQ test came from.
Okay.
So I believe his name was Alfred Binet, and it was originally a test developed to basically do an assessment evaluating the educational effectiveness of like the French schools.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, they would do this assessment to determine, was the education working? And that became known as the IQ test. And for a long time, it was believed like, well, whatever it is, that's what you've got.
IQ stands for intelligence quotient. Is that
Right,
correct?
right.
IQ. Okay. Intelligence quotient. There you go.
Yes. And so more recently, brain research and studies have shown that, our brain's a muscle and it has unlimited potential. Now, I'll add this caveat in there. If you have some sort of birth defect, brain trauma, something that has, injured the brain or has some sort of negative impact in a way that, in the development of the brain, right? Certainly, would not apply because there are limitations that are there, much like if you had some sort of other physical limitation. But that being barred, if you have a healthy functioning brain, that you can, with effort and time, increase your ability to grow your intelligence.
Okay.
And so let's think about it this way. For a long time in our area, we would look out at the city of Oak Ridge, and for a number of years, the ACT, SAT scores in the state of Tennessee, the highest scores came from that area.
Okay.
And folks would say, oh, well, one idea of that would be the mother and father are both, maybe the father's an engineer, the mother's a scientist, or vice versa. They're highly educated. It's genetic. So the DNA is passed on. The kids naturally has this high level of IQ. That's what it is. Well,
but it was really alien water.
It's it's liquid death water. It's this wonderful mountain water.
It was the wonderful mountain water.
Cool and refreshing.
This great Smoky Mountains made them smarter. Anyway, go ahead.
But let's think about another possibility. So you have parents that are well educated, have very well paying jobs, so they're able to provide great food and nutrition,
yes,
education options. The house has reading materials and books. The kids are typically able to go to school, come home, study. The conversation from the parents is going to be at a high level. They're going to reference maybe classic readings and that sort of thing. Now let's flip to maybe some child, we could say in an inner city situation, but it could just be a single parent situation where they have multiple siblings. And so the kid goes to school, has to come home, babysit and take care of the siblings while the single parent is working. The income is low, so the nutritional options are not there. So they're eating poor nutrition. They're not able to have some of the extra reading material, some of the other stimuli, like, in modern day, you would say all the technology options or whatever. But in years past that we're talking about, all the other educational games or anything that would enhance the cognitive ability. And so then their test scores would potentially be low, maybe just because of that. So they just haven't been exposed to much. So they're a little behind the curve. So you had mentioned in the prior podcast this idea of growth mindset. So Carol Dweck did a lot of research and popularized a book that she wrote, built upon research from other psychology thinking over the years about this idea that we're born with either a fixed or growth mindset. So to simplify it, we could go off into a deeper explanation of this.
Make it simple, JB.
But for simplicity,
put the cookies on the bottom shelf for me. Put the cookies on the bottom
simplicity, a fixed mindset will see a challenge. Maybe they have a failed experience, where they fail at something. They'll see that as themselves being a failure, or a hard challenge as being, well, I'm just not maybe good at this. Let me go try something else. And they look for easier things or something that they can master. So they feel like whatever skills or abilities or knowledge they have is that's it. Where a growth mindseted person will see a failed experience as a learning opportunity. So they go, oh, I failed at this. What do I learn from it? How will I get better next time? And they see a challenge that they don't succeed at first is like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this till I get it. And then once they succeed at that, they're going to look for an even harder challenge. Yes. So let's go to sports. So you may see.
Hold on, pause that. Wait on that, because I want to hit on something real quick. Parents mess their kids up.
Yeah.
Because when the kid brings home an A,
right,
they just congratulate.
Well, or they'll say, wow, Drew, you made an A. You must be really smart.
Right.
Or you get a
Right.
good grade on a report card. See how smart you are. Well, that's
Yes.
reinforcing this idea of a fixed IQ or a fixed mindset where you say you've already
Yes.
got what you need, right? And there's no need. So the right thing to do as a parent would be to reinforce hey, you got an A. You really studied at this. You've worked at this. You are learning well.
Yeah.
And even the kid says, well, I really didn't study that much. Well, it just shows you're learning,
Yeah.
and you're doing well. And you reinforce the effort over and over
Yeah.
because, the sports example I was going to give, you see this, and we'll use football. It's in the fall. Football, you'll see this with the quarterback. So a quarterback that has a fixed mindset throws an interception, and you see their whole body language go down. Their demeanor go. They go over there. Maybe they even pout. They throw a helmet on the sideline or whatever, and they let it get in their head, and then they come back, and then they overthink it, and they make another mistake, and then eventually they say, well, I guess I'm just not a quarterback, or this football is not my thing, and then they go do something else. Where a growth mindset quarterback throws an interception, looks at it as a learning opportunity. In today's modern technology, they go over there, they pull up the tablet, they look at, oh, I see what happened. They disguised the coverage, and they got moved over. I'll get them next time. And they learn from it. And they see each one of those failed experiences as a learning opportunity. So what we've learned through that is, with that growth mindset and that ability to continually learn and grow and develop, I can maybe start off a little behind someone. So let's go back to the situation I gave where, okay, maybe it's not genetics. Maybe it's the environment and the other opportunities a child had that's a little ahead over here. The one over here can continue to work and put forth the effort. So maybe their conditions change. Maybe they get a scholarship now. They have funding and they're able to study more, maybe get a better diet, and all those things that we talked about. And so with their effort, they may go eventually above and beyond the capabilities of this person.
So how do I break out? So let's go to application.
Right.
How do I first of all determine what would be some of the behaviors that I might display if I had a fixed mindset? How do I think? How do I know if I have a fixed mindset?
So one indicator is, as I mentioned, you see failed experiences, you relate that as you being a failure.
Yeah.
And you can almost see that. With studies of smaller children, they may be given like puzzles, or a problem to solve. And the ones with a fixed mindset, they'll struggle with it, get frustrated, and just push that puzzle away, and they want an easier puzzle. So they'll look for something they can master. Where the growth mindset, they'll struggle with it, but they'll stay after it until they get it.
Yeah.
And then once they solve it, they're like, bring me something harder, bring it.
Yeah.
And so you'll see a lot of those, behaviors.
So if I'm an adult and I'm constantly, well, I can't do this, I'm no good at it, and you just give up and move on.
give up.
That's kind of fixed mindset. So I'm thinking, and is this tied? So let's get a little doctoral on it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
So is if I have this mindset that I'm a failure and that I can't do certain things, and I've said it about certain things in my life, that I'm just not good at this. Is that something internal that I need to work on, or is that, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to how do I motivate myself to move past that fixed mindset? How do I push myself into a growth mindset? Is that possible? Because a lot of people probably listening to this want to know, okay, am I stuck? Can I grow? Can I get better?
So the exciting thing is that the research, especially conducted by Carol Dweck, and she explains this in her book Mindset, is that you can change that.
Yeah.
And so you can work at it and change that. And as parents, you can reinforce the growth mindset. Now, part of that's difficult because, again, your preference, your tendency is going to lean more to that fixed mindset. And I'll break it down, but I'll give you an example. So you have maybe someone that has some natural ability or skill. Maybe it's in music. We call them a child prodigy. They just naturally can play pretty well. They can play by ear, and they just pick up. We might call them a virtuoso. They can really play whatever instrument it is. Or an athlete that just stands out because they have some extra whatever it is abilities in whatever sport. And if they don't continue to push that to expand and grow, they may plateau out. Where someone with less talent, but they have a lot of passion and desire, and that's where Angela Duckworth's work came in around grit, and it ties into this mindset thing. Okay, you might have whatever talent you have, that times the effort it becomes a skill, and then more effort becomes success. So you might have someone like Michael Phelps, the great swimmer. So he had some natural abilities. Part of those natural abilities and it was his physique.
Yeah.
Right. So he had
He's
the
long,
shoulders
he's
and the long
muscular,
torso, and I think his toes and fingers were webbed. I'm not
Probably
sure.
so.
But he will tell you that, okay, that would have gotten him to a certain level. He would have won races in high school, probably got a college scholarship. But it was all the extra effort that he put into it that raised him and elevated him to the even better successes. Someone who very much has a growth mindset, because if not, he would have stuck and said, hey, I've got enough. I've got this natural ability. And so you go, well, how do I foster that? How do I help someone improve that? Well, some of it is intrinsic. I've got to eventually make that choice, that decision. So a lot of my area of study was around self-directed learning, and that it really becomes to that personal choice to become an autonomous learner. Well, when I say autonomous, that doesn't mean just only by myself. It could be, but it could be with or without the help of others.
Yeah.
And so how do I foster that? Well, in the educational environment, one thing we do, in a model that I developed with my good friend, Dr. Elizabeth McTavish. And we call the model the CLEAR model.
The CLEAR model.
And so CLEAR model is based on this premise. You may have heard the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
Well, educators have long posited, well, I can lead a learner to knowledge, but I can't make them learn.
Right.
But with a horse, I can introduce conditions that will make a horse thirsty. Maybe it's a salt block, whatever it may be. Run them a little bit, and then they're going to want to drink the water. Well, our argument, or we posit that you can create conditions that will make a student thirsty for knowledge.
Yes.
So how do we do that? Well, it goes back, we talked about choice before, providing choices. So if I want to get you excited about learning, maybe there's a topic that you need to learn about. Well, I give you some choices about how you get there.
Right.
At a formal educational environment, maybe it's a learning contract where we're going to study a particular method of doing something, but I'll give you options on how you learn it. So you can choose some of those methods. Well, then that leads to the L in the CLEAR model. So we got C, choice, we got L, and that's leading. So some of that's leading your own learning, but then I provide you opportunities to learn about something that excites you, and then you go and teach somebody else.
Yep.
Or it's like peer mentoring and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so by that, then I'm reinforcing the learning. And again, it's something you're excited about. And what we've learned is, and this is through research and my own personal experiences and observations, there's only a very small percentage we learn when we do what we used to call the old sit and get, transmit and receive.
Sage from the stage.
Yeah, where I'm just listening to someone tell me about something, or I'm reading about something. There is a certain percentage.
The statistics I remember to be 10% maybe that you walk away with.
Maybe at most.
Yeah.
But as we move towards giving you more the experiential hands-on, and that's the E in the CLEAR model. So now I'm providing you the opportunity for some hands-on. We believe you don't learn to do, you do to learn. But part of that experience is also you thinking about prior experiences and knowledge, comparing and contrasting that to new knowledge and experience that you're maybe, whether it's a classroom or I'm a certified YouTube mechanic. Nowadays you can go on YouTube, you can watch tutorials, you can learn how to do things, put tile in your house, whatever the case may be. So as I'm comparing my prior knowledge and experience to new knowledge and information, I'm considering those experiences. And then you get to the A part of our model, apply. So that's the ability to apply what you're learning about. Again, I don't learn to do, I do to learn. So I get my hands on it, but now I'm able to practice it and put it into practice and actually use whatever it is I'm learning about. The R of the CLEAR model is reflecting. So I'm reflecting in the moment when I'm doing something and on the moment back on it. That allows more of that reinforcement of reflecting on my prior assumptions or thoughts about, we'll get to that, but your prior thoughts and assumptions, comparing and contrasting that to what you just learned. And here's the thing, whenever your thinking is challenged, and so you're challenging your pre-thoughts on something, you have the ability to then either go and learn and be able to support and know what you know, why you know it, and be able to make a case for it, or you transform your thinking to whatever it is that's new. So with that transformation, we can get into a whole different area of study, transformational learning. I'm now transforming to a new level.
That's right.
So all of that gives you that hands-on constructivist where I'm comparing, prior knowledge, new information, and I'm constructing knowledge. There's also, that's constructivism with a V. There's also constructionism with a T. And that's where me and you may be learning about a new or a topic that's not new, but it may be new to us. So it's not the first time anyone's, learned whatever it is. But as we're exploring it, we're co-creating thoughts on
That's
whatever
good.
it is. So all that said is, you say, well, how do I create more of that growth mindset? Well, I try to help someone. Maybe it's your child, or if you're an educator in a classroom, I'm helping them find something that's exciting to them, and I'm providing them opportunities to take personal responsibility for their learning.
Yeah.
And then in a best case scenario, helping them to learn collaboratively, because then that's something we're going to do the rest of our life. We got to be able to maybe go initiate some learning on our own, but also be willing and open to learning with and through others.
I have so many thoughts right now. Let me just, I think Dr. Beard's model with Dr. McTavish is phenomenal, and I have seen it work, not just in the student space, but I've seen it work with adults that I'm executive coaching. I don't know if I know I read your published article, and I've started to use elements from it even unknowingly because I know how good it is, and we've talked about this a lot. But I can see where that's playing out. So for people growing in their leadership journey, me and Dr. Beard are brought in to executive coach people. Basically, all that is we would be considered leadership experts. We know a lot of the techniques and tactics on how to lead. And then it is an art form, though. And what we do in executive coaching is kind of teach the learner to be an artist. Ooh, that's good. Mm. And we're teaching them to be an artist and use these tactics and techniques. And the things that he talked about in the CLEAR model, every aspect, I can see it taking place in how I'm teaching these guys, because I'm making them thirsty. They want to get better in their leadership.
Right.
We talk about maybe an incident that happened, and then we give them ways to get better at it. So whether it's through podcasts, and then I almost did this unknowingly, and I probably stole it from you from your article, is I have them listen to the podcast or read the article, mm-hmm. and then they have to teach it back to me.
Right.
And it locks in their brain. And then there's a lot of reflection. I'm always like, well, let's think on that.
Right.
How did that affect you in the moment? And I like how you talked about reflection on action, reflection in action. Inaction is harder, mm-hmm. because you're literally reflecting while it's happening.
Right.
And that's higher level thinking. We would call that metacognition, maybe, right?
Yeah.
This is y'all are getting, I mean, I know this is a free podcast, but this is money right here. This is PhD course in how to learn. But you take these things, because I would say this: information plus application, mm-hmm. leads to transformation.
Yep.
And I think if we're going back to the spiritual formation, we talked about this in the last Pete's. You have people that are sitting there on Sunday mornings getting a ton of information.
Yeah.
And we're not even going to break down how our learning comes from Greek understanding and Greek thought. That's kind of how the American system of learning was created, kind of this linear thinking. We're not going to get into that tonight. But you have they're getting all this information from a guy that's the sage on the stage. We call him the pastor.
Right.
And then they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that American church, American society, American Christians have, is they have this information. I like to say the average Christian is 300 verses overweight.
Yeah.
Because they have all this scripture, and they'll spit scripture at you in a minute, but they're not living it out.
Right.
So there's no application.
Yeah.
And they would learn that if they take the information, then they start to apply it through their lives.
Right.
With people that are working through it with us. That's why community groups, life groups, kinships, that's why those are so important, because you're talking through these things with other people.
Right.
So you have information application leads to transformation.
Yep.
Then you're transformed. Does that line up with what you're
absolutely. As you were just talking about our typical church model, think about if you had an engineer that just went to school all these years and continued to just sit in class after class after class after class, but never was able to actually really apply it
Right.
until they, were suddenly thrown into a situation, and then you're not really prepared for the application piece.
Yeah.
And that's why we try to really create those opportunities to get the hands-on experience in the learning process. And so that goes back to, you were talking about the reflecting in. So you get a chance to do whatever it is and then have some reflection on what in the moment of doing it, and then reflecting on it, and you're conditioning yourself to be able to do that in any situation. I can educate you about something, but you have to have some experiential elements for there to be a transfer of knowledge or understanding within the ability to actually put it into practice.
Yeah.
And often you've heard me say this: examine your practice, what you do with theories or models, and then test those models or theories in your practice. So you have an opportunity, especially as an adult learner. We have life experience.
I want you to say it one more time. That was really good. Examine, say that again.
Examine your practice, what you do.
Right, what you do.
With theory.
Right.
Test theories in your practice.
Yeah.
So what that means is, especially for adult learners, you have life experience. So as you learn, and learning can be in any form. It doesn't have to be a formal course or certification you take. Especially nowadays, we have instantly in our hand a cell phone, and we do it all the time. When someone brings up a topic, you go, hold on, you Google it, or you do a quick search, and you look for that answer. We have the opportunity to do that. I recently did a repair on my car. I have replaced starters before on other vehicles, but I wanted to find out how to do it on the particular model I have. I was able to find that very quickly. Several different ways people have gone about it. One went from the top, one went from the bottom, because this particular model car has a very creatively placed starter that's not easy to get to. But after a few moments of searching, I was able to find the videos that helped walk me through it. I was able to learn how to do it, learn what tools I needed, methods, and everything else. And then, in this case, I was able to immediately go do it and try it. And we learned this with technical training over the years. I know you did technical things in the military and worked on aircrafts, where you could train someone and put maybe part of an engine or something on a bench, and okay, I can tear it down, put it back together. But it's totally different when you get out there in an environment.
That's right.
And you've got maybe safety PPE or safety goggles on. You're out there. Yeah.
Hydraulic fluid dripping down your armpits. Yeah, it's good times.
And you're out there in the heat and all that stuff. And so, there has to be an opportunity to try it in a real application. Right. Now, in educational environments, we have the opportunity to transition that as best we can. Like you said, you give someone something to go read, teach it back. Now let's try it. And now I'm an observer. I'm able to give you some feedback on that and help you grow in it. I grabbed my laptop because this is one of my favorite quotes, and I can mostly recite it by memory, but I wanted to get it right. When we impose ideas on people, we train them.
Yeah.
When we create an atmosphere where people are free to explore ideas and dialogue, and through interactions with other people, we educate them. And I love that because, the model many of us were exposed to in our lifetime was people telling us what to think, telling us how to think, maybe even telling us how we think.
Yeah.
And then dumping that on us.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay. And then maybe you were trained or conditioned to do something a certain way. But when I create this atmosphere where you're able to explore the ideas, you're reflecting in the moment, on the moment, and you got an opportunity to put your hands on it and think about it. And then you're interacting with other people, maybe a collaborative opportunity, or you've got some observations. All right, try that again. Now maybe you want to consider this. Then you truly are getting that education.
Yeah.
And so it's back to anything we've already talked about. It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And that's where this idea of lifelong learning comes into play. And I mentioned this in our prior podcast, that it starts with this self-discovery, And the self-discovery helps us understand where we're at. Now, that may come through self-assessments, from feedback. In leadership, we do 360 feedbacks, or you do self-assessments on your personality, temperament, or whatever it may be. That leads to self-awareness. Self-awareness then lets us know, hey, these are things that either I'm good at or that are going well for me, and these are some areas that are maybe blind spots or areas I need to work on. With that information, then I make the decision what to do with that. It's my choice. So then can I self-develop? Meaning, and when I say self, all of these things mean you have the personal responsibility. You have to own it.
Yeah.
And but there may be some self-motivation that's required to get to that piece of, do I self-develop? And then development helps me determine.
Are you
what
teaching us your self-leadership circle right now?
Well, I'm going to tell you about it, because this is important, because then what happens is, now with that development, I'm not only developing areas maybe I've identified that I'm weak in or need to improve. We don't want to become stagnant or status quo, because then that regresses.
Right.
So then I still need to work on the things I'm good at. Think about in sports. You've got professional athletes that are really good at what they do. They don't just in the off season sit around and not continue to work at those things.
Yeah.
They're continuously working at it and trying to get better. And they may identify some things, some form or technique they need to work on. If they're quarterback, I'm doing the quarterback thing. Maybe it's a different way of, but they're continuing to do the other things, the footwork maybe that they're already good at. So from that, what does that give us? Well, that gives us the ability to self-manage. We also use the word self-regulate, self-control. All that means is I now am intentional or deliberate about my actions.
Yeah.
I am not reacting randomly. I'm responding in situations, or I'm making a purposeful action when I do things.
I like how you said that. And let me touch on something real quick. Reaction
Right.
is worse
Right.
than response. Response is what you want to do. A lot of times we talk about in the emotional space.
Sure.
Do you react or do you respond? Respond is with thought.
Well, it is, because reaction, if in the emotional space, then an emotional situation happens, and we typically mirror the emotions of others, the whole mirror neurons, and we can allow ourselves to get into a space where something happens and we immediately react to it, and whatever happens. And many times it's unfiltered. When I'm responding to it, then I am being intentional or deliberate about what I do. And generally I'm calmer. And this goes back to that experiential piece.
Yeah.
And being able to get the hands on. In the leadership space, we try to put people in simulations, role plays, and in working through what we call the soft skills or professional skills, that is a little different than when there are, maybe a specific hand skill.
I love it called professional skills. Soft skills seems weak and people have degraded.
It does make that.
Actually, soft skills, aka professional skills, are the most important aspect of leadership.
Right.
It is not your intelligence or ability to command yourself or a system. It is the ability to work with other people, aka professional skills. Okay.
Well, and that gets into the EQ or emotional intelligence versus the IQ. And many would argue, attitude over aptitude. You've got to have that. So that's back to that self-manage, self-regulate, self-control. But we don't stop there. We continue to self-direct our learning and become that lifelong learner, so that we can identify or
so good.
self-discover more things that we may need to work on.
So it's
an ongoing
cyclical
effort.
process.
It is
ongoing effort. We've hit on a lot of key concepts today. I hope Dr. Beard has given you a way to apply what you've learned. Remember, there's a lot of information, but you have to apply it. You have to take it out and apply it. Leave a comment wherever on the space that you watch this on. Leave a comment, shoot us a comment if you want to learn more about this. We're going to continue to talk about these elements of how to grow in our journey as leaders, how to grow in our journey as people. We're going to keep walking into that. But I have to close this out, JB, on what we ask all of our guests. And it is called, what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
I think right now is one I recently was made aware of, is the conspiracy theory that we have people controlling the weather. So like the recent hurricanes that we had, that those were intentional and deliberate to cause destruction And then what is it? The lithium.
Yes, the
That's in-
lithium. Yes,
yeah.
in Western North
Right.
Carolina. Yes,
So what's
the
interesting
bad
is,
guys are controlling the hurricanes.
all right, so we talk about climate change and all this effort in saying that all of this has been created because of mankind's doing,
Yeah.
right? But then when you bring up those conspiracy theories, some of those same people will say, well, you can't control the weather. And you go, oh, well, if you can't, then why are we putting all this effort
Right.
with climate change? But that one's interesting because I know, well, I had read fiction books on this topic, and then I thought it was just fiction. But then I've heard examples of there are some things that can be done to maybe create certain weather conditions. So that one's interesting.
Dig into, if you want to learn more about this, go look at what we did in Vietnam, or what some of the thoughts are what we did, how we were controlling the weather. And that was in the 1960s.
Right.
So you think if that's possible in the 1960s, and that actually came into play, if we can prove that and understand that actually came into play in the 60s, that was 60 years ago.
Wow.
So we probably got a little bit better by now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I thought maybe when I heard that people had just watched the new Twister, because
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
how they did it on that
Yeah.
on the
trying
little.
to stop the tornadoes.
Yeah.
And, I thought, wow, have you been watching Twister?
Interesting.
I don't know.
mean, it's possible.
But if we can introduce it, maybe there's things we can do to direct it or stop it. I don't know.
True.
But that's interesting.
Not saying it's real. Saying
Yeah,
it's
I
a
don't know.
possibility.
That's
Yeah,
why it's a conspiracy
That's
theory.
why it's a conspiracy theory.
There
And
you
what
go.
I have learned is in every conspiracy theory there are elements of truth.
There is.
So
But think about this. Which is more dangerous? A clock that's 5 minutes off or one that's 5 hours?
they're both off. It doesn't matter.
They're both off, but you would recognize a clock that's 5 hours off.
Yes.
You look and go, that can't be right. But if it's 5 minutes off, it'll cause you to be late, miss appointments.
Yep.
It'll create you some problems. So even a conspiracy theory or a rumor mill that's just slightly off by percentage, still there's a lot of danger in that.
A lot of danger.
So be careful.
Well, this has been an action-packed, information-filled, application-driven, transformation-fueled countercultural life with my friend, one of my best buddies on this planet we call Earth, this spinning rock, Dr. Jeffrey Beard. If you want to learn more about Dr. Jeffrey Beard, look him up. He's all over the intrawebs, I think. You can just find him. The Clear Model.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Beard, Elizabeth McTavish.
Yeah.
Clear Model.
Check it out.
Great learning. Check it out. All right, we'll see y'all next time on Countercultural Life, coming through from Study Studio, a.k.a. The Kickback. Peace.